Well, while I'm waiting for everyone to arrive. Let's have something to eat. Welcome to the noontime stream. You have currently arrived. Sorry if you're hearing some rattling. Hi, Jolene. How's it going? I'm sorry for the wait. Ah. I'm having a little bit of lunch because I skipped over breakfast a little bit. Ah! And I just stick my hand right into it. That's not good. I'm alright. Last night was too hot in my apartment again. The heat. The heat. Wow. You guys having a hard time to sleep? Is that what was going on? It's a me. Welcome, welcome. Okay. That's all set up. Yep, I always do the bloopers at the end. That is no problem. Yeah, we were here. You guys ready? Okay. I don't think I am though. Well, because I want to finish this stupid thing. So, remember yesterday I told you it was Lucky's birthday. So I got her this toy. So it would move around by just flicking the switch. So, the controller works okay. However, the toy, because it says to put it on the charger, let it charge for 3 minutes. However, does not do what I want it to. I wanted to record that for you guys and just put it up on my YouTube. But we didn't get to do that because it's a stupid toy. The day of the siege had finally dawned. We had arrived at the Demon Lord's castle, and we were as ready as we could be. Many armies bearing different banners and colors washed over the grounds before the castle, ready to rush in and lay waste to the Demon Lord and the remainder of his forces. All of us shared a common enemy, and upon his demise, would all finally know some form of peace. Even during the roll call of the major generals, the air became full of determination and pride.
Mirth, Avarice, Nadia, Fiorna, Aradum.
Each name called became a mark on history. This was the war to bring freedom or destruction to the demon world. If the rebellion didn't win this fight, then this war would never end. If the rebellion won, then the world would become united in a hopefully peaceful rule. The hour before the battle was set to take place, my thoughts instantly ran back to our final meeting in Liz Castle. Diana had pulled the leaders and us together, instructing us on how exactly to proceed.
Sarah, you will be joining Shadow and Sergeant in the front, taking care of the main army head-on. I expect that you will come out of it alive.
Yes, my lady.
Rabbit, Faye, you are in charge of range attacks and defense. We cannot allow any of those blasted imps getting to us from behind.
Yes, ma'am!
As Diana looked at me, I grew slightly fearful. I had to get into the Demon Lord's castle, but how exactly did Diana plan on getting me there?
You and your fiancé will take the side route straight to the castle.
Wait, huh?
We've organized our army to have our strongest on the front lines and against the tree line, giving us a side road for you to make your way straight to the castle.
If anything trickles into the side route, you'll be able to handle it. However, there is something I must ask of you.
What is it?
If you are indeed attacked, you need to defend your fiancé the entire way there. Do not let him use his energy.
Ah, wrong button.
Absolutely not.
When you get to the castle, I will be fighting one-on-one with the Demon Lord. If something should happen to me, then I need you to take over. She is not ready to fight him, and you need to be at full strength to finish him off.
She's been taught well. Let her prove herself when the time comes.
I stared, listening and reaffirming the order. I couldn't lie, I was nervous. However, I was determined enough to see this through. I looked at my fiancé with a confident smile. I got this, don't worry. Despite the worried look in his eyes, he nodded and held my hand, trusting me and my decision to agree with Diana's command. Diana rolled her shoulders and looked at the map, draped over the war table between us all. Her gaze pierced into the parchment as the aura around her body pulsated in anger.
I will fly ahead and meet the Demon Lord head-on. No matter what happens, I will not allow that monster to live.
The pure determination and anger in her voice practically sent a shiver down my spine. She was set on seeing this through to the end. I was sure that she was willing to even die if it meant taking the Demon Lord with her. The remaining incubi and the wives were asked to stay behind the army and guard the main base, where Rabbit and Faye were stationed. They needed as many eyes as possible in the back of the battle, so the 4 couples were perfect to keep things in check. As they agreed, the meeting ended and the mental preparation had begun. The idea of the upcoming battle scared me, sending waves of fear and worry up and down my body in response to the thought.
Nervous?
I would be lying if I said I wasn't. James smiled and held my hand tightly before bringing it up and kissing over it.
No matter what happens, we will end this, and you will see the human world again.
I listened to him speak before nodding, taking in a deep breath. Everything would be okay. We would be fine. I had to believe in myself and get us to the castle when the time was right. Like a beacon, our forces became the banner of hope and strength for the rebellion. At the sight of Diana, many soldiers bowed or stared in awe and inspiration. Maybe it was her presence, or maybe it was for what she stood for. But as Diana stood at the cliffside of the mountain, the air became full of energy and power. My fiancé, Rabbit, Faye, and I stood behind her as Diana stood on the ledge of the cliffside, addressing the rebellions for their final battle. Her voice echoed across the field, becoming and reverberating through the air like thunder.
Milites! Et hoc liberati sturei teramcun tuis omnibus conversiris, sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem, nocte, lavabimur, arcem, hostium sanguine.
What is she saying?
She said that she stands with them and will help them gain their freedom from their enemy. Tonight, the Demon Lord's castle will be bathed in blood.
Really?
I don't think she means it literally, but she's riling up the soldiers for war, as she should.
I nodded as I stared at the back of Diana's head. A part of me felt a little intimidated and jealous of the power she had. She really could make armies bow to her and obey her every whim. At the same time, I knew that she was doing the right thing for this world.
Ele Dio dominati sun nostri, nostes suret, ium mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos.
A pair of guards rushed forward carrying a frailing imp demon who was caught in chains and forcibly slammed him down in front of Diana. She glared down at him and gripped one of his horns, pulling him to his knees.
You should be thankful we didn't throw you into a stew like we did your partner.
With that whisper, Diana dragged her nails across the imp's neck, slicing open 5 large gashes in his throat and making him garble out a painful, blubbly cry. Oh dear. Diana, however, kept holding his head, forcing on the blood that poured from him, and guiding the energy that emanated from it towards the castle. With a flash, a large purple and red aura barrier that surrounded the castle shattered, fading into the air. The barrier that held the Demon Lord at bay was finally open, allowing us to charge in and end this once and for all. Woo! We're just gonna slice that imp right open, aren't we? We're just gonna slice it up and let his guts pull out, and we're just gonna have a lovely barrier. Holy cow. Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed into a set of demonic wings. I could only stare, jaw dropped, as Diana... Ah! Something opened. I don't like when things open. When I don't want them to open. Go away! Go away, you doggo thing. You're blocking my reading skills. No! Thank you. Thank you very much. Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed into a set of demonic wings. I could only stare, jaw dropped, as Diana's body lifted off of the ground and began to fly over the legions, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
At her final command, Diana's wings pulsated in the air, flapping gracefully as she swooped down and forward. She was charging and flying for the castle walls, saber bared and ready to spill blood. As the armies below began to bellow and march forward, Rabbit took hold of my shoulder and turned me away from the castle to face her.
Come, we must hurry.
Understanding the need for urgency, I nodded and rushed forward with the rest of the incubi towards the slope down the mountainside.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west.
What of our route?
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
I nodded, feeling the need to rush Nip at my heels. Pushing me forward, my fiancé seemed to agree, gripping my hand and walking at my pace alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped, looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost.
You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. So this is it.
Princess, brother, we'll see you in the end.
We have faith in you. You'll make it there, and we'll return to the human world soon.
Kick his dead body a couple times for me, alright? Right in the head.
We'll be right here rooting for you and watching your back, okay?
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Make sure you kick some serious ass.
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Make sure you kick some serious ass. Show that old goat what he gets for messing with you.
We'll win this. We know we can.
You can do this. We'll see you soon, okay?
I smiled despite the nerves running through my body. I held onto my fiancé's hand and gave it a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked into the tree line, took a breath and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me, who not lose sight of for me. The journey was surprisingly fast going through the trees. The sound of the war crashed beside us outside of the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume. But I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. Before I could, however, I skidded a stop, seeing Imp appear from the distance and rush towards us. As my incubus came up behind me and spotted the Imp, he prepared himself to attack, but I placed my hand on his arm, stopping him. I got this. I walked forward and formed my weapon, letting it shine brilliantly. Well, we could do brilliantly, or we could do brightly. In the darkness of the forest, around the temporary blinding the imps ahead of us. The hilt of my sword materialized in my hand as a sharp lavender blade jutted out from the handle, glimmering brightly with my energy. I swung it around a bit, remembering the training I went through with it, and steadied myself. The imp who were blinded by my light only for a moment looked back at me and stared as they took note of the weapon I had possessed. With a battle cry, I rushed forward, taking advantage of their blank state. Yeah! I sprinted forward and carved my sword through an imp, cutting his neck open in my slice, before twirling around and ripping through the imp beside him and effectively cutting him down. The imp fell as the others became shell-shocked at the sight. It must have been a big surprise to see human cut down 2 of their number, but I wasn't in the mood to let them recover. My body quickly turned in front of another imp as I swung my weapon once again, slicing open his throat. With a bubbly cry, he fell as well as I rushed forward again towards the castle, uncaring. The remaining imp began to quake and step back in fear, most likely never expecting to see a human decimate their companions. I wasn't so friendly and merciful, especially in the war, as I lunged forward again and skewered through another imp, hearing the steel of my weapon breaking through his body. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my carnage, followed as I continued forward, fighting through every imp that came in our way. I had lost count of how many crossed me, but I didn't care. All I cared about was getting to the castle. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there were a slew of dead bodies behind me. I stood at the tree line panting and feeling waves of adrenaline and lack of energy run through my veins. I panted for air, slowly focusing on calming down. As my energy quickly depleted from its adrenaline-filled high, the weapon in my hand quickly vanished, no longer able to maintain its form without my energy. That was all I could do before my energy was expanded and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Whoa! Are you okay?
Huh? I looked up to see James staring down at me with a deeply concerned gaze. We were safe for the moment, so we merely smiled up at him with a nod. I'm fine. I promised to protect you, like you protected me. James let out a small sigh, A small laugh. James let out a small laugh, kissing my forehead and hugging me to him.
That you did. I'm so proud to call you mine.
I hugged him back, feeling relieved that we had finally arrived at the castle and were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, James lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
Will you be all right?
I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle gates and felt a rush of determination run through me. Let's go, finish this. With that, James and I rushed forward into the castle. The final battle had begun. The ringing sound of clashing swords greeted me and James as we sprinted into the castle and towards the main hall. James placed a hand in front of me as I spotted the battle waging at the foot of the throne dais. Diana and the Demon Lord slammed their swords against each other and over and over in violent repetition, with Diana level to her tall opponent in flight. Just from the force behind their swings, you would think that their swords would break and bend. The sound of the steel, however, could not cover the snarls that erupted from each of them as they pressed against the clash between them.
It's over, you brute bastard! We'll see about that!
With a heavy grunt, the Demon Lord pushed his sword forward with a pulse of red energy, causing Diana to fly back and slam into a pillar with a painful thud.
Ah!
Diana crumbled to the ground, her wings instinctively folding in against her back from the impact. However, it only took a second for her to recover and look up with a rejuvenated glare. Vaulting off of the ground, Diana flew at the Demon Lord once more and slammed her sword into his, a large burst of purple flames erupting from between their weapons.
I will send you to hell where you belong!
James and I watched in silence as Diana and the Demon Lord danced their deadly duel, not wanting to get in the way of either of their rage. After all, James was merely a backup and Diana seemed fine so far. Whew! For some reason, however, as I stared at Diana, something about her hiss looked almost effortless, like something was guiding her sword to land each strike. Was she that skilled in combat? After a flurry of deadlock, Diana finally managed to swing her sword at an angle, slicing the back of the Demon Lord's hand and making him drop his weapon.
You!
The Demon Lord quickly stepped back and reared his other hand back, forming a large red orb in his hand. However, as soon as he thrust it forward, it began to dissolve and dissipate in the air, vanishing completely before it reached Diana's body.
What?
Diana stared in shock at the occurrence, taking in that his attack didn't hit her, before she slowly grew a smirk on her face and a golden glow over her blood-red irises.
Looks like you're all out of energy.
With another angry growl, the Demon Lord repeated his action only to stare in disbelief as it evaporated into the air. It was large enough when in his hand, yet it vanished all too quickly. Something was wrong. Diana didn't seem to care as she lifted her hand back behind her and formed a large purple orb in her palm before shooting it forward. The orb slammed into the Demon Lord's chest and pushed him back against the pillar, harshly forming large cracks in the stone at the impact.
It's over!
With her battle cry, Diana gripped onto her saber with both hands and flew forward, charging to screw the Demon Lord through the chest. As she began to fly forward, I gasped at the sight of white feathers slowly painting over Diana's demonic wings. Angels were here. Wait! Diana wasn't listening. Her eyes became completely glossed over in a golden color as a strange white glow began to emanate from her form like a holy light and guided her forward towards her intended victim. Within a mere blink, Diana had run her saber through the Demon Lord's chest, piercing through his heart and impaling him against the pillar. Yes, it was my phone. I just don't know what happened. Ah! It was from one of you guys. Oh crap, what the heck had just happened there? James and I could do nothing but stare in shock at what Diana had done and what was happening to the succubus in question. Her body left off almost an ethereal white glow as she snarled into the demon lord's face.
May Satan take you and tear you apart in the pits of hell.
My body shuddered in fear at the sound of her voice, while she naturally had some sort of demonic renaissance as she spoke. Something else was laced into her voice, giving it almost a celestial lift in tone. The demon lord's eyes glazed over and soon lost their light as he ever so slowly went limp over the blade embedded within him, blood slowly dripping from his mouth and onto Diana's forearm. Diana, however, released the handle of her blade and glided back, shaking her arms to rid them of the demon lord's blood. Despite what I normally expected from Diana, the succubus didn't seem to care that her mortal enemy had fallen at last. Oh, you're being too cute. You know that, Lucky. You know that? She's just laying right down there. She's sunbathing, more or less. She didn't even seem to care that her wings had become angelic and covered in beautiful white feathers. If it wasn't for her tainted demon skin and horns, I would imagine Diana at that moment to be confused as the angels I imagined from the human world. The reality of the situation, however, was apparent. Something was wrong with Diana.
It is done. It is over.
I looked to James, seeing his cautious but deadly glare burning itself onto Diana's form. As she looked up at him, eyes still glazed over in a golden glow.
It isn't truly over, is it?
Diana stared at the pair of us for a moment before lowering herself onto her feet on the floor and letting her new angelic wings fold against her back patiently. With an almost singingly sweet smile, Diana lifted her hand towards James and beckoned to him.
You are correct. You must take your throne, Restra.
My anger flared at the sound of his true name escaping her lips, but my soul began to quiver in fear. Diana was being controlled by angels, and now she seemed to be an instrument for James's destiny. James, however, remained at my side, glaring hard at Diana, still with a hand across my body in protection.
You do not have permission to use my name with such familiarity.
And why do you say that? I am the queen of the demon world now, and you are my betrothed.
Diana ran her hands through her hair and over her horns, dragging them down her neck and over each curve of her upper body seductively. This was definitely not Diana.
My mind, body, and soul are completely yours, as is the domination of this world. I share these pleasures and power with you, with the purest love from the bottom of my heart, as your true, universally intended bride.
James reached his hands back and took my hand, knowing that her words were digging into my mind with edge of betrayal and annoyance. I knew James wouldn't accept her, but I also knew that this was not Diana, so who knew what the angel controlling her would do next. Diana tilted her head to the side, slowly lowering herself onto her knees and stretching her arms by her side, bearing herself to us.
Unless you desire me to be your slave, I will happily give you the throne and eternally serve you until the end of time.
Enough! Release her and reveal yourself, Seraph!
I gripped James's hand, staring wide-eyed at Diana as she simply chuckled and gathered her hands together, pressing her palms between her brows and leaning back to stare at the high marble ceiling.
This child of Lilith is offering herself to you, demon, yet you refuse to take it.
You know my answer.
It is a foolish answer. This demoness can become a vessel of power for you, the mother of your lineage. What more can you desire that the human can hope to provide?
Stop it! This time I had to interject. This was wrong and underhanded. Whatever spell Diana was under gripped her tightly enough to become some sort of twisted submissive to James, and no part of me appreciated it. This angel was some sort of sick and twisted being that needed to be stopped somehow. James finally stepped forward, forming a sword in his hand and staring down at it in serious thought.
An angel like you can never understand the desires I hold.
That is because your desires are misplaced. You know deep in your heart that you desire to rule over this world. Your demonic blood craves the power.
I watched James gaze deep into the steel of his blade, locking eyes with himself. Still, he continued to speak.
It is true that some part of me wishes to rule this world. Some darker, unfeeling shadow of the past that was raised to live and become the ultimate lord of this plane.
As James gripped the handle of his sword tightly, he shifted his gaze to Diana's body.
My heart knows where it belongs. With the human who loves me as I love her.
My heart fluttered in my chest at James's word, feeling every ounce of passion and determination embedded with each sound. Diana, however, let out a dark laugh.
Love, how fleeting. Your defiance comes from such a weak emotion.
As Diana finally straightened back up, I stepped back from the sight of her eyes. Instead of black purples, her golden eyes held two dark crosses burning within her lost irises. The smirk on her face intensified, almost like a Cheshire cat's sickening grin. It's like the treasured cat in Alice in Wonderland here.
Allow me to show you a power greater than love!
With a hard flap of her wings, Diana jutted forward, forming another saber in her hand, and arching. Oh my god, I can't speak! With a hard flap of her wings, Diana jutted forward, forming another saber in her hand, and arcing it across James. Her target countered in reply, clashing his sword to hers with a heavy clang. Oh my god, I can't get that paragraph out. Shoot me now! Good lord! I instantly jumped back away from the fight as James and Diana began to clash swords again and again. James's face showed his pure concentration as Diana cackled in both an insane glee and an obsessive desire.
Fight however you like! You cannot escape your destiny!
I will, and you will not stop me!
The speed of their clashes increased. The rapid sound of beating steel crashed through the air like a wave of violent drums. They were equally matched, and neither seemed to be close to giving in. How long would this fight go for? I knew Diana was probably exhausted from the fight, but the angel was working through her, so there was a chance that her exhaustion wouldn't matter. Then again, James had not lifted a finger yet in his war, as he had energy to spare. The entire situation became full of confusion and concern as James and Diana continued to duel without hesitation or need for air. As James took a heavy swing towards Diana, the succubus leapt back and sank gracefully on her feet, using her wings to ease her descent and stance, while she licked her lips.
Love is a fleeting game. Those who expect it to bring happiness will only experience sorrow in the end.
You're wrong. I was tired of this angel trying to get in between me and James. Enough was enough. I stepped forward, trying desperately to find more energy within me to fight alongside James, but spoke out regardless. Sorry about that. Someone said hello. You don't know anything about love.
I know more than you ever will, human. I've lived for eons serving heaven, and have watched your kind rant and rave all about love and its existence.
Diana lifted her hand to her chest, grasping at it over where her heart was, and almost laughed at me and my words.
You humans use love for the most meaningless of things. I love him, I love her, I love this, I love that. You claim love to be a powerful emotion, yet you can't even give it the power it supposedly deserves, as you use it for everything. I've watched that word fall on deaf ears. I've seen lives destroyed, despite love guiding them forward. The mere word has become a throwaway amalgam of letters, used to express minor joy for things that will decay and die in the end.
So guys, what do you think we should say to this crazy angel? Okay. Love is stronger than you think. I knew deep down that the emotion of love was stronger than the angel could have ever imagined. This wasn't something it could debate against when I had experienced it firsthand with the man it was trying to take away. Diana laughed and shook her head, gawfawig at my exclamation before stretching her arms out to the side.
Love is weak! I have claimed the body of a succubus who is full of true love, and not even her love can stop me!
I stared wide-eyed at Diana. She was in love. Even more so, she had a pure and true love. But if love was the factor behind control, then something was off. I shook my head and glared once more at Diana, burying my gaze into her eyes at the angel, who was controlling her movements. You controlling her has nothing to do with love. You're taking advantage of her being weak from the fight with the Demon Lord. Finally, Diana's face melted into a glare as she bared her teeth at me and growled.
You know nothing! Less than nothing! Filthy, unclean human! You open your mouth and spout nonsense and forget your place in the universe!
Diana's saber began to glow an unfriendly white color as Diana's hand began to quake holding it. Was Diana fighting back, or was the angel's anger shaking her limbs with rage? I wasn't able to tell.
I will erase you!
A hard flap of Diana's wings made Diana fly forward towards me, sword held high to rip me in two. However, her blade was met with James as he rushed up and guarded me. James pressed back against Diana's saber, his body glowing a dark gold color in response, in her ever-growing aura.
Your battle is with me, Angel. I will not let you touch her.
With a heavy snarl, Diana pressed herself against the deadlocks, leaning towards James, and practically furthering at the mouth.
I will make you yield!
Unaffected by the scream, James summoned a burst of yellow energy forward, knocking Diana back towards the throne dais. Diana flipped back and floated in the air, gracefully shaking her head before sneering at James. The demons sprang at each other. Oh my gosh. The demons sprang at each other once more, slamming their swords together in hopes to push the other away or strike their opponents down. Purple and gold clashed through the room, the speed of their duel growing exponentially with each hit and parry. Watching Diana, however, I could tell the exhaustion was hitting her, and physically. Her hits became wild and thrown by adrenaline. Instead of with purpose and intent to kill, the angel wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Woo! James was putting up a good fight despite this, easily blocking and dodging her attacks before pummeling a barrage of his own, laced with gold energy that burst between their sword at each hit. As Diana and we'll just lose my freaking place. As soon as an opening became available, once again James gripped onto Diana's wrist. I went straight for the waist. As soon as an opening became available, once again James gripped onto Diana's wrist and twisted it back, making her release her saber with a painful scream and causing him to drop his own sword. I'm just thinking of when I said waist and twisted it back, making her release her saber within a painful scream. All I think of is that James just said break. Oh, man.
Enough of this!
Using the momentum of his attack, James spun Diana's around, so her arm was almost dislocated behind her and slammed his feet into the back of her knees, causing her to buckle forward and land with two painful thuds. James, however, pushed Diana's farther down and slammed her body onto the ground, trapping her arms against her back with a foot and gripping onto Diana's large wings with both hands. I guess he wasn't going to rip them off of her, right? With a concentrated glare on the back of Diana's head, his fist tightened around Diana's feathery wings and suddenly sent a wave of golden flames through them. The fire stopped at Diana's back, only consuming the wings in a gold and red flame. Diana's scream echoed through the room, bouncing off the floor and walls in a frenzy as she could do nothing but feel the flame engulf her wings. The feathers that painted over them began to burn and dissolve into ash, falling around her. Soon enough, the pain became unbearable enough to force Diana to make her wings vanish back into her skin, where two large burn marks signed themselves.
I'm sorry.
Not giving Diana a single ounce of mercy, James dug his foot beneath her body and flipped her over, causing her back to arch in pain from the impact of her burns on the marble. Smoke snaked out from her back as she gasped loudly. I'm like stumbling all through this. Damn it! As Diana opened her mouth and let out her breath, James quickly grasped onto her neck, squeezing tightly and causing the succubus beneath him to choke. James! Neither demon would hear me as Diana grabbed onto James's wrists and began to claw at them, desperate to make him let go of her. Her eyes began to flicker from gold to their original clear white and red color as Diana could do nothing but spasm from lack of air. I'm going... We should stop him, right? Or should we not? Shouldn't we stop him? Stop him. I needed to stop him before he killed her. The angel wasn't worth her death. I rushed forward and grabbed onto James's arm, making him look up at me as I knelt down beside him. James, stop it! You'll kill Diana! James stared at me, taking in what I had said, with the same surprised look before, looking down at the succubus beneath him and glaring hard. Was he going to kill her anyway?
Come out and fight me.
With a burst of energy surging through James's hand, Diana's arched back in a spray of frothy saliva and blood erupting from her mouth towards the far wall. James' gripped hand loosened around her neck, but Diana's body continued to spasm from James's attack. Diana's eyes rolled into the back of her head, finally fading from gold to white. As she gasped for air, her body relaxed at last. As Diana's body finally went limp and settled onto the marble, a large white aura of smoke whisked out of her chest and shot itself as the thrown dais settling on the steps and slowly growing taller in place. The white smoke finally formed into a familiar cloaked being who was arched forward with his viney hands tensed out beside him. Something about the angel, however, seemed different than before, as if he had somehow gained energy from being within Diana.
You filthy cur! You continue to try and defy your destiny when it is useless!
James stood and glared hard at the angel, forming his sword once again in his hand, and pointing it towards his new opponent. His body began to glow, and the room began to brighten as his golden aura.
I have no such destiny to remain in this world. My life is bound to the one I love, not to an empty chair gained through blood.
You will have no choice in the matter!
Like two bullets, James and the angel rushed at each other and collided with James' sword against the angel's bare hand. I expected James's blade to tear through the angel's flesh, but the steel pressed against the angel's hand like it was grazing stone. The angel gripped to James's blade and slowly began to crush it beneath his hands, causing the magic surrounding it to falter and fade. James and I stared wide-eyed at the angel, was able to rip the broken pieces of the sword off and toss it to the side like it was plastic. Determined still, James shot his energy through his sword and reformed the blade, going once again for another attack, only to be blocked by the angel's forearm. Upon impact, the steel of the blade shattered like glass, falling to the ground.
No mere servant of heaven, demon. The keeper of destiny, the scribe of fate. You cannot defeat me no matter what spells you conjure.
Upon his final word, the angel pressed his hand forward and slammed down against James's chest, forcing him to fly back and slam into the far wall. James! I instantly began to rush towards him, but found myself being lifted off of the ground by the back of my neck and pulled away from James towards the angel. Yeah!
No!
I grabbed at the back of my neck, feeling the angel's hand grip it tightly and keep my body afloat somehow. His hand felt indeed like stone and concrete, grazing against my skin roughly and almost tearing at the flesh as I struggled. Let me go!
I should have forced you to choose from the beginning, demon. This human will not see a reason to let you go, but I know that you will see a reason in the offer I will graciously give you now.
The angel held my body out, dangling me in the air like a doll. As I frailed and crawled at the angel's arm, my nails merely scratched against his stone skin as I felt my energy slowly deplete even further than it was in my spirit.
Accept your fate, demon, and I will bring her back to the human world unharmed. Refuse, and I will release her to the gates of hell for the devil spawn to ravish.
As he spoke of James's potential refusal, a large wave of heat burst out beneath my feet, causing me to look down and scream at the sight of the ground. Beneath my body was a large open circle with red flames flaring out of it. Between the flames I could barely make out the sight of hundreds of hands reaching up to try and stretch themselves through the hole above them and towards me. Each hand burned in red sent waves of remembrance down my body as an image of Melik appeared in my head. My fear only spurred me to frail harder in the hold I was in, uncaring of the friction his hand was causing my skin. I could feel blood gather and drip from the back of my neck's flesh, tearing open from my attempts. James stared up at me, quaking from the fear of the situation. We were far away from him where he couldn't reach me. Even if he sprinted as I dropped, I was left to James's decision. James' body began to rumble in despair as James dropped to his knees and slammed his hands onto the marble ground. My heart dropped at his words.
I accept my fate.
No. James.
I accept my fate! Now release her!
Obediently, the angel loosened his grip on my neck as the hole beneath me closed. As my feet touched the ground, the angel fully released me and watched as I rushed over to James, sliding onto my knees before him. James, no.
Say your farewell to her, demon. I will grant her that much before I take her back.
I wrapped my arms around him, desperate not to let go. I wouldn't be separated from James ever. James, however, wrapped an arm around me and buried his head into my shoulder, his tears falling over it.
I said.
Fuck you! I'm not leaving him! James slowly stood with me in his arms, causing me to stand on my own 2 feet as well. He pulled away and looked down at me, tears flowing down his cheeks.
I love you. I will forever love you until the day I die.
James? James gently cupped my head in his hands and kissed me, shaking in grief as he did. I, however, could only stare in disbelief. Was he really going to let me go? I felt a small draft open behind me, causing the air around me to circulate and rush past my body before feeling one of James's hands lower to my sternum and push me back. With a gasp, I watched as James kept his hand extended out to me, while my body became sucked into some sort of portal. White feathers danced around the barrier, and my mind began to flood with memories that slowly evaporated the farther back I went. Tears continued to drip down James's cheeks as my memories began to frail and burn, causing tears to form in my eyes as well. Our marriage, our embrace, our love, it all turned to ash and vanished from my mind. Soon enough, the sight around me became a pure white, and I could remember nothing but my name. And accepting destiny. T. Dun dun dun. You guys just got me to unlock the bad ending. I had no clue. Oh no. But I have a feeling I know how to fix it. So don't worry. I like to train with sound. Sword, and we'll just skip parry, dodge, and we skip, and we skip. Sorry, we skip. Let him stare. We'll say what were we doing, because that's what you guys wanted. And kissing before sleeping. We're gonna burst it. We're gonna tell him we had a nightmare. Gonna question it. We're gonna let them finish. There has to be a way. Oh. Ah!
To focus on your energy. Next time, be prepared.
Well, I screwed up that part. Parry. Are you okay? No, may not be the best time to hope for that. Is there any way to prove your love for her? We'll go with that. Shake off your... Okay, so... I know in the previously episode, we didn't do this part, so we just shake off your thoughts. So we're gonna get up and kiss him. I couldn't control myself. I needed some relief from the entire situation I usually found it in. James' embrace against his lips. I stood from the bed and walked over to him, wrapping my arms around him and pulling him into a kiss. James, taken by surprise, gasped against my lips before wrapping his arms around my waist and kissing me back. I let my mind sink into a blank state as I drowned myself in the kiss between us. However, I knew partly why I was doing this, to give James energy. If energy was what he needed to fight this, then I was willing to feed it to him. James pulled away slightly and looked down at me. He looked into my eyes. He stared in soft surprise and confusion.
Love, is everything all right?
Kiss him again. I didn't want to tell him what happened. I didn't want him to know what was going on in my mind. I simply needed to help him in the only way I could, and I needed not to think about what was happening. I pulled him back in and kissed him that much harder, wrapping my hands behind his head and gripping him tightly. James didn't question me further and tightened his embrace around me, deepening the kiss. Our mouth battle in a dance of dominance, with James winning and me giving in to his passion. I found myself growing weak in the knees with his kiss between us, but at the same time I was floating in a mental cloud nine. My mind knew I could stop him if he asked. I would come up with an excuse for my behavior, but I was slowly getting into the direction I was taking James towards. As one of his hands slowly slid down my back and hooked itself under my leg and behind my knee, I knew that this was my one chance to pull away before I let myself drive into a most needed sexual ride. So, on that part there, see, we can pull away right now, or we can go all the way. So this is the part where we should have kissed him. So, do you guys want to go all the way, or should we pull away and stop? All right. I needed him. There was no point in stopping now. I quickly grasped his shoulders and pulled him, walking us back towards the bed, and eventually falling back over it with my knees between his legs. My mind became mildly frantic, shutting out the world, the war, the castle, the other demons, everything from my mind. All I needed right now was James and his embrace to take me away for the night and make me forget. James slowly pulled away, a soft pant escaping him. As he stared down at me, his pupils were blown in pure love and lust, gazing down at me with a hazy stare. James, I need you right now. At the sight of James suddenly licking his lips, something in my core trembled. As my fingers slightly dragged themselves along my side and gripped my waist, I felt myself melt into the mattress beneath me. I had unlocked the beast within James, and I was ready to take him. Screw the world for now. The night belonged to us, and us alone.
Allow me to indulge myself first.
I felt a hint of confusion run along my mind before suddenly feeling James pull up my shirt and ease it up, causing me to lift my arms above my head. What I didn't expect was him tying the shirt around my wrists and pressing my hands back near the bedposts. Oh shit! But what? A deep chuckle echoed from James's chest as he brushed a hand through my hair, making me gaze up into his eyes. He didn't have to enthrall me to make me weak for him, but as his beautiful whiskey eyes began to glow a brilliant gold, my body began to warm and shudder in desire. I couldn't stop the moan from escaping my lips as James slowly knelt down and planted his lips on my neck, digging his tongue over my most sensitive spot and slightly nipping at it. I tilted my head to the side, giving him more space to work as he slowly began to ravage me. My legs naturally wrapped around his waist, pulling him closer to me, but as I did, James evilly rolled his hips against mine, grinding his knee against mine and forcing us both to release a gasp at the feeling. All I could think about was James touching me, holding me, kissing me, delving deep into me. My mind was spinning in endless waves of desire that I could barely control myself from pulling at my makeshift binding and arching my my back against James's chest. James merely paid in kind by moving his kisses to my lips, passionately dancing his tongue against mine in a battle of dominance. I was his to take, conceding defeat in his tango. I naturally tried to lower my arms back down to capture his between them, but James suddenly pulled away and forced my hands back above me, making me gasp and stare wide-eyed into James's dominant gaze.
Keep them there.
I didn't need to question him or his command. I nodded, willingly obeying despite knowing that his teasing would be the end of my sanity for the night. A smirk of approval slowly grew on his lip before he came back down and captured my lips again. I could only grip the fabric of my shirt around my hands, fighting every urge to disobey James as he traveled his mouth down my neck and chest, licking and kissing over my skin. Every part of me that was exposed to James became his to claim. Each touch he made on my body, every finger that traced along my skin made me shudder in absolute delight. My feet dragged themselves along the back of James's legs, teasing him and trying to urge him to come closer. As he did, took his sweet time undoing my pants and sliding them off of me before removing his own, leaving us bare for each other. James barely hovered his lips over mine, staring deep into my eyes as our passionate night began to take off. Our cardinal desire for each other took over, unrelenting, as we moaned through the night together in a loving and passionate crescendo. I let everything go, tearing through the shirt and eventually dragging my nails along his back. His pained hiss between his groans and pants made me lick my lips in almost a sadistic manner, but feeling him slow and tease me as punishment reminded me who was in charge. The only sound to accompany our loving plea and moans for each other was the creaking of the bed and the echo of our voices. We didn't give a damn who heard us. The entire castle would know who we belonged to, each other. Even as we peaked together, the fiction of our love was intensified, driving us to kiss each other and ride through the afterglow of our sex together. James managed to open his eyes, staring down at me, in both exhaustion and love, as he ran a hand through my hair. I could only stare back, lost in his whiskey-colored eyes.
I am so unbelievably blessed to call you my own.
Me too, James. Our love fueled each other like a raging fire. We were destined to be together. Fuck anyone who said anything otherwise. We went to bed that night in each other's arms, enveloped by the peaceful dark of slumber. To my surprise, no nightmares came that night. And we are going back to where we were. Whee! So, I know we're going to stop here because of this question right here. I know you guys said yes. But in this situation, I'm going to say, I don't know. I truly didn't know. All I knew was that Sarah told me, but I knew better than to tell Diana just from what Sarah warned me about. Diana's eyebrows furrowed, but she nodded.
I see.
Diana stared at me, digging into my gaze to try and find some sort of other answer in my eyes. However, I remained steadfast. I didn't want to worry her anymore if James and I could handle it on our own. According to Sarah, we could. Diana sighed before turning to leave.
All right. May today go smoothly.
I nodded as she left. I hoped today would go smoothly as well. Another round of surprises would kill me. And then we skip. Now, I know last time everybody told me to keep walking, but we should have peered in. I stopped walking and peered inside, wanting to see what was going on. Sarah was standing steadfast by the large fireplace, as Shadow, arrogant as ever, loomed over the small table that was covered in maps and books.
Do you really think a quest like this is beneficial to the war?
All it would do is leave us with one less powerful ally for a significant amount of time.
I would not be gone long. I'd research this.
Yes, I've researched this route multiple times. You've already spouted that more times than I care to appreciate. Regardless, even if things did go your way, and you journey there and back without some form of incident, you would turn up a day before the siege. Your mission...
I have to be...
Yes,
Sorry.
I've researched this route multiple times. You've already spouted that more times than I care to appreciate. Regardless, even if things did go your way, and you journey there and back without some form of incident, you would turn up a day before the siege. Your mistress will not likely forgive your absence.
But I have a feeling that this will be worth that absence. If I can do this, if I can prove that my love for her is real.
You are having delusions of grandeur. Love does not exist for us demons. This quest is folly.
I glared at Shadow. Why was he being such an ass? Sarah, however, looked to his feet, gritting his teeth and shutting his eyes.
You came here and asked for my counsel, God. I am merely telling you the truth of the matter. Whatever hope that human placed in your mind is illogical, and only a detriment to our cause.
I do.
I hope you take my words into careful consideration. Nothing fruitful will come from this journey you wish to undertake.
As he finished speaking, Shadow faded into a black shadow on the ground and slipped into the dark corners of the library, vanishing from sight completely. Sarah growled beneath his gritted teeth and slammed his fist against the mantel behind him, forming a large crack in the stone.
Damn it.
We are going to enter the room. Shadow was wrong. Whatever Sarah wanted to do to prove his love for Dana was worth it. I felt my heart agree with my thoughts, with a firm thump in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door and entered the room. Sarah looked up at me with a startled gaze when he heard the door creak as it opened.
Oh,
Sarah looked down at the table, embarrassed, while he rubbed his back of his neck.
How long were you there?
Long enough to hear what Shadow said about me. With a frown, Sarah turned his gaze to his feet as I stepped further into the room. He let out a sigh.
I've been thinking a lot about what we've talked about. You asked me if there was a way to prove my love to Isaiah. Well, there is a way.
Really? Sarah nodded before ushering me over to the table. I walked over and looked at what Sarah wanted to show me. A large set of maps, all pointing to a single area in the abyssal plains, near the ocean.
There's a legend that has been passed around the demon world for eons. The Golden Rose. It's said that if someone finds its hiding place and proves that the love in their heart is real, the rose will blossom and become physical proof of their true love.
Is this legend true?
No one can say for sure. No one has ever found it, yet the legend exists, so it must have some form of merit. I've tried for years to find its location, and now I have.
Sarah pointed at a hand-drawn circle on the map and glided his fingers along the map towards the area where the rose was said to be.
It would only take me 2 days to get there and to return. If the story is true, then I'm positive I can find it and bring it back to Isaiah as proof of my love.
As Sarah finished, the smile darkened to a sad grimace.
However, I have been advised against this journey, and for good reason. I would be abandoning my lady days before the final battle, and that alone could be considered treason. Even more so, would she forgive me for leaving at such a crucial time?
I looked at Sarah's face, seeing the conflicting emotions running through his eyes as he stared at the map in front of us. Was it really worth it?
Still, this may be my only chance to do this. When we win this war, my lady will require me to be by her side more so than ever. I must be there to support her at all times when she rebuilds this broken world, but I would lose the chance to prove my love to her.
I didn't know what to say in response. While I wanted him to do what he felt was right, there were so many things that could go wrong. What if the legend was false? He would be gone for nothing, and would come back empty-handed. What if something happened while he was away? He wouldn't be able to return in time or to help. Or what if something happened to him on his journey? He wasn't invincible. I closed my eyes, trying to figure out what to say to him. When I realized what I wanted to say, I spoke up. And the answer is this. You should go. Sarah really loved Diana. It was plain as day, and if she wasn't persuaded yet from his words and dedication, the journey would convince her. It was worth the risk if he was really in love with her. She was strong enough to handle things on her own while Sarah was away. Sarah looked at me in surprise as I smiled at him. If this was prove your love to her, then you should find the rose and give it to her. Whatever the risk it is, if you believe it's worth it, then do it. Something in Sarah's eyes glistened, as if a spark had been ignited, and the hope in his heart began to burn with joy. A smile grew onto his face as he nodded, now determined.
You're right. I'll leave tonight and come back with the rose, even if it's the last thing I do.
I grinned wildly. I was happy for him. To see Sarah so determined to prove his love filled my soul and joy. As he stepped towards me, I watched as he wrapped his arms around me, giving me a friendly hug.
Thank you for your help. I won't ever forget this.
You got this. I smiled and hugged him back, patting his back at my words. He squeezed me tighter before letting me go. Sarah nodded to me before rushing out of the library, most likely to set off on his journey as quickly as possible. He needed all the time he could get. I, however, felt my heart give an approving thud in my chest. I had done the right thing. Hello, little kitty. How's it going? Welcome to my live stream. And hello to Mad Cats and Bianca and all of y'all. Welcome back to my live stream, if I haven't said your guys' names before. After a brief moment, I nodded to myself. Yes, I would have. I left the library and headed towards my room, now filled with determination of my own. I finally arrived at my room, but as soon as I entered, something wasn't right. I felt something was off just from stepping inside, but there was no one there. Oh, okay. So anyway, we're gonna do that. Something was off, so we could investigate, or we could do what we did before and leave the room. On this one here, I'm not really sure which one is the right one. Because I'm not really sure. But, okay. Okay, Medcat, we'll investigate. I shook my fear from my mind and took a breath. This was not something to be scared about. I was sure of it. I walked further into the room, only to hear the door slam shut. I turned around, seeing the door closed, making me panic a bit. Hey! Before I could walk over, however, I felt the energy in the room freeze. But what? I looked around, now unsure of what to think. Whatever was here had succeeded in trapping me, so I needed to deal with whatever it was. Baring my teeth and stepping further into the room, I scanned the room for any movement. Who's there? What do you want? So, in that sort of deal, it doesn't matter if you leave or if you investigate. It's basically saying the same thing, so that choice is like a neutral. The voice that replied sent fear rushing through my body. I looked around to try to pin down the direction of the voice, but it seemed to just echo around the room. Who are you? What do you want?
You meddle in things beyond your comprehension. Why must you attempt to toy with destiny?
I remained silent for a moment. This was an angel speaking in English to me. I didn't know why it was speaking to me after they had attempted to wipe my memories and haunt me. Still, at least I would be able to learn more as to why. I glared into the room and continued to look around. I'm not toying with anything. James chose to stay with me, and he and I are going to be married.
Rachel's fate has been set. You have no place in it.
And we're gonna skip because we're already there. And I know a lot of you told me something last time around. You told me this one. Still want to say fuck you to the angel, guys? Or should we just say no? It was, if this was the angel's attempt to prove something, it was sick and twisted. There was no reason to show this to me, especially when the one I was marrying was engaging with a woman who had wanted to take him away.
This was the time when Maestro was destined to return to the Abyssal Plains. Isaiah would have convinced him to go home, and they would have consummated their engagement before returning to take their birthrights.
No.
It is the truth. The only event that stopped it from happening was your voyeurism and intrusion.
I will not let him go.
How selfish. Humans are all selfish creatures.
The angel was toying with me, and we are so going to skip. So we stood silent last time. Should we say to the angel this time, what done is done? So Kami again. It's so mad at the angel. She says, fuck you, angel, die in hellfire! My username is misleading. What done is done. I remember Diana's voice echoing in my memory. She had moved on and was building the rebellion to eradicate the Demon Lord. As terrible as this was the inciting incident that gave Diana the motivation to destroy the Demon Lord. I looked away from Diana, no longer wanting to see her grieve, and glared into the ceiling. The past cannot be changed.
The past is a reminder of our mistakes.
The past is a memory to look back upon, not to bury yourself within it. Before my eyes, the room vanished. Once again, I found myself surrounded by flames. What the?
Burn everything to the ground!
I looked around, trying to find the source and direction of the voice. This was just an illusion, but the heat of the... Okay, so we're back to that part, so we're going to skip. And, of course, we're going to say that, because I know you guys. Oh, okay, we're going way back. We went too far forward, and I can't go back. Shit.
You do not have permission to use my...
All of a sudden, Sarah lunged forward and wrapped his arms around Diana's arm and chest, hugging her body tightly. As she released a tearful gasp of surprise, Sarah buried his face in her shoulder as Diana stared wide-eyed as the wall ahead of her. Diana froze in his arms as Sarah clutched her body to his, locking it against his chest.
Do not send me away from you. I broke my vow, yes, but I did it for a reason. I cannot bear the thought of being separated from you. Not after what I have discovered.
I stared, feeling my heart clench. It was like watching a romantic drama where the two leads were either going to break up or confess their love for each other. The air was tense and full of both anticipation and fear. Diana remained frozen in Sarah's arms as he lifted his head and gently relaxed his embrace around her.
Isaiah, I've brought you something.
You... What?
Diana finally began to move slowly, turning around in Sarah's arms to look up at him in confusion. Sarah frowned, seeing her tearful and red face, and gently brought a hand up to her cheeks. He gingerly wiped the tears from Diana's eyes with the back of his fingers before cupping her face. Diana didn't lean in, but she didn't object to it.
I brought you something very important. It may not seem important to this war, but it's important to me.
My heart caught itself in my throat. Did he? Sarah released Diana's teeth before waving his hand between her face, black and purple mist forming in the air, shifting into something small. As it finally materialized, Diana gasped and silently echoed her reaction. In the air floated a beautiful golden rose on a dark green thornless stem. It had mostly blossoms showing its beautiful petals and glowing softly in between Sarah and Diana. It slowly turned in the air, showing Diana all of its magnificence.
The golden rose. A symbol and proof of my love for you, Isaiah. I've wanted to retrieve it for you for the longest time, and now I finally have.
Sarah.
I love you so much. You have given my life so much meaning, and I have sworn my life to protecting you. Isaiah, you are the most precious and the most beautiful woman to ever grace the 5 worlds, and being with you every day fills me with such joy. If this is what it takes to prove my love for you, then I will happily give you thousands of golden roses for as long as I have breath. But please, know now that my feelings for you are pure and true.
I felt like crying. As I watched the scene unfold, Diana was stunned, streams of rogue tears once again falling down her cheeks as she stared at Sarah. The rose slowly lowered to float between their chests, as if it was patiently waiting for something to happen.
You are my everything. My moon, my stars, my world. Please, Isaiah, do not send me away from you.
Sarah, you idiot.
Sarah let out a soft chuckle as Diana wiped her eyes with a very, very small smile.
Insult me all you like. I deserve it for leaving your side. However, now that I've proven my love to you, I must know the truth. Do you love me?
Diana looked up at Sarah as her smile grew ever so slightly. Something about Diana changed as she looked up at him. Her eyes seemed to be lighter and full of joy. My heart melted at the way they looked at each other. Sarah watched Diana with curiosity, and Diana's gazing at Sarah in a warm electation. Diana lifted her hand to the rose and gently cupped it underneath its petals, making Sarah look down and gasp. In Diana's hand, the rose fully bloomed, revealing the innermost gold, almost white petals. Sarah looked back up at Diana, seeing her cry joyful tears and fighting back tears of his own.
I do, Sarah. More than you could ever know. I was just...
Sarah gently shushed her, cupping her cheeks gently and wiping the tears away with his thumb. For the first time, at least from what I had seen, Diana nuzzled into his hand, closing her eyes. She looked so innocent and pure with Sarah's now. Was this the real Diana?
Whatever fear you had, let it go. I swear to never hurt you and to love you until time stands still.
I stared teary-eyed as Sarah gently took the rose from between them and placed it in Diana's hair. Behind her ear, Diana waited until he finished before reaching up and wrapping her arms around his neck.
I love you too, Sarah.
At last, Sarah wrapped his arms around Diana's waist and pulled her close as they both leaned in and finally kissed. It was a magical sight to behold. Their love echoed in the kiss, making each other almost glow within the room. I felt my cheeks warm in an uncontrollable blush as I watched. I'm leaving this up to the chat of what to choose. Should we keep watching or should we just leave them alone? Keep watching, okay. It was beautiful to watch unfold. Diana and Sarah finally found love within each other. I was giddy and excited for them both. As they slowly pulled away, Diana slightly slapped his chest, making Sarah laugh a bit.
You really did worry me.
I know. and I'm sorry.
I'll forgive you if you tell me one thing.
Anything.
Did our guest convince you to do this?
My heart caught in my throat, but out of fear, no excitement. Was Sarah going to tell on me? I was the one who convinced him to go, but would Diana punish me for giving him the idea? Sarah tightened his hold around Diana's waist, making her gasp slightly before nuzzling nose to nose with her.
I was merely given advice and counsel. I chose to leave on my own.
I let out a silent sigh as Diana chuckled and ran her hand along Sarah's cheek.
Sarah, I know when you are lying to me, but I'll let it go this time. At least you're safe here, with me now.
And I will never leave your side again.
The pair smiled at each other before Sarah captured Diana's lips again in another loving kiss. As she kissed back, a dark purple pentagram appeared beneath the pair and slowly drew them into the floor. They probably wanted some real alone time. I shook my head laughing at myself before turning on my heels and heading back to my room. Okay, so we're gonna skip this part. Really loved you, James. I needed to hold him and treat this night like it was the last night of the world. You guys give me a minute. Thank you. I needed to hold him and treat the night like it was the last night of the world. Tomorrow was unpredictable, but tonight was guaranteed. I slowly glided my hands to cup his head, looking up at him and staring deep in his eyes. Now, do you guys want me to read this again? Or do you want me to skip forward to the end? Because I will. I was about to. Okay. Woo! There we go. Okay. So we are all the way back to this, and we are still saying love is stronger than you think. I knew deep down the emotion of love was stronger than this angel could ever have imagined. This wasn't something it could debate against when I had experienced it firsthand with a man it was trying to take away. Diana laughed and shook her head, gawking at my exclamation before stretching her arms out to the side.
Love is weak! I have claimed the body of a succubus who is full of true love, and not even her love can stop me!
I stared wide-eyed at Diana. I knew that she truly loved Sarah, but the angel was able to take hold of her somehow. Something was off. I shook my head and glared once more at Diana, burying my gaze into her eyes as the angel who was controlling her movements. Your controlling her has nothing to do with love. You're taking advantage of her being weak from the fight with the demon lord. Finally, Diana's face melted into a glare as she bared her teeth at me and growled.
You know nothing! Less than nothing! Filthy, unclean human! You open your mouth and spout nonsense and forget your place in the universe!
Diana's saber began to glow an unfriendly white color as Diana's hand began to quake holding it. Was Diana fighting back, or was the angel anger, shaking her limbs with rage? I wasn't able to tell.
I will erase you!
A hard flap of Diana's wings made Diana fly forward towards me, sword held high to rip me in two. However, her blade was met with James as he rushed up and guarded me. James pressed back against Diana's saber, his body glowing a dark gold color in response in her ever-growing aura.
Your battle is with me, Angel. I will not let you touch her.
With a heavy snarl, Diana pressed herself against the deadlock, leaning towards James and practically furrowing at the mouth.
I will make you yield!
Unaffected by her screams, James summoned a burst of yellow energy forward, knocking Diana back towards the throne dais. Diana flipped back and floated in the air, gracefully shaking her head before sneering at James. The demons sparring at each other once more, slamming their swords together in hopes to push the other away or strike their opponent down. Purple and gold clashed through the room, the speed of their duel growing exponentially with each hit and parry. Watching Diana, however, I could tell that exhaustion was hitting her, and physically, her hit became wild and thrown by adrenaline. Instead of with purpose or intent to kill, the angel wouldn't be able to hold on for long. James was putting up a good fight despite this, easily blocking and dodging her attacks before plummeting a barrage of his own, laced with gold energy that burst between their swords at each hit. As soon as an opening became available, once again James gripped onto Diana's wrist and twisted it back, making her release her saber with a painful scream and causing him to drop his own sword.
Enough of this!
Using the momentum of his attacks, James spun Diana around so her arm was almost dislocated behind her, and slammed his feet into the back of her knees, causing her to buckle forward and land with two painful thuds. James, however, pushed Diana farther down and slammed her body onto the ground, trapping her arms against her back with a foot and gripping onto Diana's large wings with both hands. I guess he wasn't going to rip them off of her, right? With a concentrated glare on the back of Diana's head, his fist tightened around Diana's feathery wings and suddenly sent a wave of golden flames through them. The fire stopped at Diana's back, only consuming the wings in a gold and red flame. Diana's screams echoed through the room, bouncing off of the floor and walls in a frenzy, as she could do nothing but feel the flames engulf her wings. The feathers that painted over them began to burn and dissolve into ash, falling around her. Soon enough, the pain became unbearable, enough to force Diana to make her wings vanish back into her skin, where two large burn marks singed themselves.
I'm sorry.
Not giving Diana a single ounce of mercy, James dug his foot beneath her body and flipped her over, causing her back to arch in pain from the impact of her burns on the marble. Smoke snaked out from her back as she gasped loudly. As Diana opened her mouth and let out her breath, James quickly gasped onto her neck and squeezing tightly and causing the succubus beneath him to choke. James! Neither demon would hear me as Diana grabbed onto James's wrists and began to claw at them, desperate to make him let go of her. Her eyes began to flicker from gold into their original clear white and red color, as Diana could do nothing but spasm from lack of air. Okay, so I'm going to save right here, just to make sure that if I did screw up, we'll be right back to this point. Neither demon would hear me as Diana grabbed onto James's... we're past that. We're gonna stop him still. I need to stop him before he killed her. The angel wasn't worth her death. I rushed forward and grabbed onto James's arm, making him look up at me as I knelt down beside him. James, stop it. You'll kill Diana. James stared at me, taking in what I had said, with the same surprise before looking down at the succubus beneath him and glaring hard. Was he going to kill her anyway?
Come out and fight me.
With a burst of energy surging through James's hands, Diana arched back, a spray of frothy saliva and blood erupting from her mouth towards the far wall. James' grip had loosened around her neck, but Diana's body continued to spasm from James's attack. Diana's eyes rolled into the back of her head, finally fading into gold to white as she gasped for air, and her body relaxed at last. As Diana's body finally went limp and settled onto the marble, a large white aura of smoke whisked out of her chest and shot itself at the throne dais, setting on the steps and slowly growing taller in place. The white smoke finally formed into a familiar cloaked being who was arched forward with his viny hands tensed out beside him. Something about the angel, however, seemed different than before, as if he had somehow gained energy from being within Diana.
Filthy cur! You continue to try and defy your destiny when it is useless!
James stood and glared hard at the angel, forming his sword once again in his hand and pointing it towards his new opponent. His body began to glow, and the room began to brighten in his golden aura.
I have no such destiny to remain in this world. My life is bound to the one I love, not to an empty chair gained through blood.
You will have no choice in the matter!
Like two bullets, James and the angel rushed at each other and collided with James's sword. Against the angel's bare hand, I expected James's blade to tear through the angel's flesh, but the steel pressed against the angel's hand like it was grazing stone. The angel gripped to James's blade and slowly began to crush it beneath his hand, causing the magical surrounding it to falter and fade. James and I stared wide-eyed as the angel was able to rip the broken pieces off the sword and toss it to the side like it was plastic. Determined still, James shot his energy through his sword and reformed the blade, going once again for another attack, only to be blocked by the angel's forearm. Upon impact, the steel of the blade shattered like glass, falling to the ground.
I am no mere servant of heaven, Damon. I am the keeper of destiny.
Okay. Upon his final word, the angel pressed forward, his hands forward, and slammed them against James's chest, forcing him to fly back and slam into the far wall. James! Please don't die on me again. I instantly began to rush towards him, but found myself being lifted off of the ground by the back of my neck and pulled away from James towards the angel. Oh, shit.
No!
I grabbed at the back of my neck, feeling the angel's hand grip it tightly and keep my body afloat somehow. His hand felt indeed like stone and concrete, grazing against my skin roughly and almost tearing at the flesh as I struggled. Let me go!
I should have forced you to choose from the beginning, Demon. This human will not see a reason to let you go, but I know that you will see a reason in the offer I will graciously give you now.
The angel held my body out, dangling me in the air like a doll. As I frailed and clawed at the angel's arm, my nails merely scratched against his stone skin as I felt my energy slowly deplete, even further than it was in my spirit.
Accept your fate, Demon, and I will bring her back to the human world unharmed. Refuse, and I will release her to the gates of hell for the devil spawn to ravish.
As he spoke of James's potential refusal, a large wave of heat burst out beneath my feet, causing me to look down and scream at the sight on the ground. Beneath my body was a large open circle with red flames flaring out of it. Between the flames I could barely make out the sight of the hundreds of hands reaching up to try and stretch themselves through the hole above them and towards me. Each hand burned in red, sent waves of remembrance down my body as an image of Malik appeared in my head. My fear only spurred me to frail harder in the hold I was in, uncaring of the friction his hand was causing my skin. I could feel blood gather and dribble from the back of my neck, flesh tearing open from my attempts. James stared up at me, quaking from the fear of the situation. We were far away from him, where he couldn't reach me, even if he sprinted as I dropped. I was left to James's decision. However, something in James's eyes changed. A dark gold painted over his eyes as his body began to float in the air.
Go! As you wish!
A gasp managed to rush into my body as the angel's hand on my neck vanished without a trace. My body began to fall into the open pit below me, a wave of intense heat reaming at my legs, before I felt a strong pair of arms wrap around me and pulled me forward. What? I looked up to see James gripping me tightly, flying back away from the angel with me encased in his tight hold. As we reached the doorway of the main hall, James landed and set me down, keeping his intense glare on the angel by the throne. As the angel made their way towards me, I could feel the air become colder at each step he took.
You cannot smite me, demon. It is useless to try.
If I cannot kill you, then I will send you to a place you can never escape from.
On James's word, a large set of purple ethereal tendrils snakes around the angel hands and neck, tugging him back roughly. James and I looked back to see Diana risen from her unconscious state and glaring daggers into the back of the angel's cloak as her hand connected her to the tendrils around her target. It was mightily frightening to see her eyes completely coated in gold, just like James's eyes, as she snarled at her now captive victim.
How dare you defile me!
James, in retaliation, formed a large wall between himself and the angel, pushing him back in time with Diana's tendrils pulls. Each time the angels dispelled one of the tendrils on his body, James pushed forward and Diana formed another tendrils in its place. It became a team effort, forcing the angel back to balance his feet over the edge of the hell pit he opened. However, despite each rough tug and push James and Diana gave him, the angel continued to balance himself. With a burst of white light, the angel completely dissolved the tendrils and magic wall, jutting upward and floating high in the air, tense and growling. The two demons, however, wouldn't let him hang around for long. Simultaneously, James and Diana pounced off the ground and flew into the air at the angel. Diana and her summoned but damaged wings, and James with his new powers. Diana summoned her saber and James formed his sword, clashing them against the angel's body. The blades didn't break, but simply pounded against the cloak the angel wore, as if they were hitting armor. The angel became frazzled as he began to defend himself against two opponents, each not giving him an ounce of mercy in their attacks. It was almost dizzying to see Diana and James fly around their target, taking shot at him ridiculous speeds. Each hit resulted with a loud clang of steel against stone that bounced around the room in an endless but random cycle. Watching Diana and James encircle the angel with attacks was like watching gold and purple fireworks going off against the moon. Suddenly, Diana's saber was launched out of her hand, causing Diana to float back a bit in shock, while James attacked the angel head-on. As the angel knocked back, James attacked Diana, swooped up behind the angel, and entangled her arms around his and locked her legs around his cloak while pressing herself between his wings.
What? Max!
At her cry, purple and black lightning began to splatter and shackle around the angel, and Diana's freezing them in the air but electrocute both.
James! No!
The incubus didn't falter as he gathered energy into his blade, making it gleam an almost ethereal and godlike glow.
No! It's over!
With a large shout, James shot himself forward and impaled his sword into the angel's body, successfully ramming it through his body and skewering both the angel and Diana. Gold and purple lightning wrapped around the angel, both from Diana's spell and James's blade, causing the wings on his back to burn away into bones, then to ash. The angel's hands slowly began to darken to an ashy black color from the electrocution. James ripped his blade out from his two victims, as Diana finally pushed herself away from the angel, leaving him to float in the air for a moment. Frozen from the pain, as the angel began to fall, he let out a deathly scream before falling into the hell pit below. The angel's body vanished into the hell pit before a large burst of red and orange flames burst from its opening. The chaotic screams of the devil erupted from the pit as the flames began to die out and vanished. Soon enough, the pit slowly closed itself, having been fed a proper body to seal it away. I collapsed onto my knees, feeling the drain of the entire situation hit me like a fearful wave. It was over. It was over at last. But for how long? The entire situation became a chaotic mess. James forced the angel of fate into a pit of hell. Did this mean that James was free? What about the angel? Too many questions rang in my head, but stopped as James landed beside me and knelt down to me, lifting my chin and making me look up at him. He looked worn out, panting for air from the experience, but still had a kind smile. It was so satisfying feeling James with me. I had barely noticed the black scar on his chest vanish from his skin as I became lost in his eyes in relief.
It's over now.
I could only nod, feeling the slow growth of elation trickle into my chest as I looked up at James. He was alive, we were together, and the angel was gone. If it wasn't over, I was sure that the other angels would have come at us. I wrapped my arms around James, relieved that everything was over and we were at peace at last. Diana, however, let out a painful gasp from where she had fallen, gripping the open wound on her stomach and panting. James and I looked over in surprise as Diana began coughing up blood and calling out,
"Settle!"
On her command, a burst of white light emerged in front of her body before revealing her half-angel guard, looking around him at the new surroundings and locking his sight down at his falling mistress. Quickly, Sarah dropped to his knees and placed his hand over her wound while he wrapped an arm around her shoulders and back. Diana winced and continued to pant for air, gritting her teeth.
What happened? Who did...
Shut up and heal me.
Sarah nodded in quick obedience before muttering to himself and closing his eyes. White energy flowed through his hands and into Diana's wound. To my astonishment, the wound slowly began to close and zip together, like it was never there. As Diana let out a sigh, she closed her eyes and relaxed into Sarah's arms. Laying her head against his upper arm, Sarah let out a breath of relief as well, moving his hand beneath Diana's knees and lifting her up, bridal style. James and I stood as soon as Sarah did, facing him as he turned to us and glared hard at James. I gripped onto James's hand, stepping forward and to be between the boys as Sarah began to walk towards us.
What happened?
We fought an angel. It has been properly disposed of.
The air in the room once again chilled as Sarah kept his stare on my husband. A faint white glow surrounding his body. It faded, however, at his mistress' voice.
Settle.
Sarah looked down to see Diana looking up at him and bringing a hand up to his cheek. The tension in his eyes faded at the sight and feel of her action, making me release the fearful breath I was holding in. Without another word against my incubus, Sarah turned and walked around me and James. As he reached the door, however, he turned his head towards us.
It would seem that your destiny has been broken. Well done.
How do you know this?
Sarah didn't speak again before leaving us alone. James and I watched him leave before relaxing into each other's arms, with me laying my head on James's shoulder. I could only remember Sarah's words as he vanished into the dark of the castle's hall. If Sarah was right, then James had enough power to break his stone destiny, and him sending the angels packing only confirmed it. Thank God. It's over.
Yes, it is.
James and I held each other tightly, taking in the situation the war was over. The angels' hunt for James was apparently over. We were safe for now, and we could go home. All we could do now was let out a sigh and cherish the silence that followed. We would go home soon. It was over. The war was finally over. As the smoke cleared, we were victorious. The soldiers left standing were the ones to cheer in victory. The sky became littered with the howls and cries of the joyful and happy. The tyranny of the demon lord had ended. But what now? Home was now possible. We could go back to the human world, and we could live our lives as we wanted. It was something I desperately wanted, and yet my body was not ready to make that journey just yet. We had to celebrate the success of the war, after all. As the full moon rose, the lit castle towards the dawn, the entirety of the demon world celebrated with endless drink and food, laughter and dancing. It was so unreal, but the courtyard that I could see was filled with smiles and happy faces. We had stayed for one more night, traveling back to Lilith's castle to rest and return home. as healthy as we could be. After all, we had just gone through a war. One more night in the demon world wasn't going to hurt us. With the majority of the rebellion danced in the courtyard, I remained with my incubi and the rebel leaders, who were all in the royal hall having their own celebration. Drinks were shared and battle stories were exchanged, making some laughs and others roll their eyes. I found myself intrigued at the stories started told about the front lines. As I looked to Diana, however, she simply kept quiet, with a small smile on her face. She looked at the incubi and the rebel leaders in silence before walking away from the little party we had. As if she knew I was staring at her, Diana looked over at me and slightly gestured with her head to follow her. We're gonna follow. I felt curious as to where she was going. I made sure to remain quiet as I separated from the rest of the group and followed her out of the room into the hall. The entire journey, Diana didn't speak a word. Even Sarah didn't follow her, most likely being told that she wanted to speak to me alone. Diana led me through the castle, up a couple of set of stairs into a what looked to be a royal bedroom with a balcony. Was this a guest room? It was untouched, and I could smell the very faint scent of dust. Why did she bring me here? Diana stepped into the room, using her magic to ignite the candelabras and air out of the room by opening the balcony window. Before I could ask, however, Diana finally spoke up.
I have to thank you, dear.
For what?
For aiding us in this war. We've been fighting the Demon Lord for so long. We thought the war would never end. As terrible as the circumstance was, if you hadn't been summoned here, we probably would have still been fighting now.
Diana looked to the balcony and leaned against the railing, staring into the dark night. The light from the room illuminated her form, and she gazed at the stars. Despite the situation around us, the air seemed calm, with the faint echo of the celebration whispering through the night. I walked over and stood beside her, leaning against the balcony, and looked at Diana as she smiled and let out a chuckle.
To be very honest, I didn't expect to ever see you again. After I took your energy that night, I vowed to never deal with humans again. No clairvoyance could have told me about you coming into play in this war.
I wasn't exactly counting on coming here. But what do you guys want to say to Diana as we end our night with her? The second one? Okay. It was good to see you again, though. Diana stared wide-eyed at me, a small form of a blush on her cheeks. What? It was true. I was able to see another side of her, one that wasn't cruel or ruthless towards me. I guessed it was the real her, and I was happy to find out that she wasn't a terrible person after all. When you were in the human world, I never imagined you to be a nice person. You did everything you could to mess with me and try to get Carice. You did everything you could to mess with me and try to get Carice the boys to return. Okay. Since I came, I know who you really are. Ah. You have a good heart, Diana, and I'm glad to know that now. Diana stared for a while before smiling softly, her eyes slightly glossing over in a sense of appreciation. She almost looked like a little girl for a half a second, her face so full of innocence.
And you do as well, my friend.
Diana turned her body to me and held her hand out towards me. I smiled back and took her hand, gently shaking it before pulling her to me, surprising her. I wanted to hug her, so I did. I wrapped my arms around her body and felt her very slowly relaxing to my embrace. With a small breath and what I assumed to be a purr. Purr, purr, purr. Diana wrapped her arms around me and hugged me back. Never would I have imagined embracing Diana and seeing her not as an enemy, but as a friend. It was mind-boggling, but I was glad to know the real Diana now. Diana and I pulled away from each other and smiled before she stepped back to her original spot.
Oh, I had almost forgotten.
I tilted my head at her. What was she talking about? Diana lifted one of her hands towards the sky and waved her hand through the air, making a soft purple mist glow around her fingers. Within seconds, the mist morphed and formed itself into a lavender-colored lily, resting peacefully between Diana's fingers. She brought it down and presented it to me with a kind gaze.
A gift, my dear.
A gift? I slowly took the flower out of Diana's hand and inspected it visually. It was light, but I could feel a soft glow of magic emanating from the stem and petals. The bloom reminded me of a human world lily, but something about it seemed otherworldly.
A flower known only to demons of Lilith. We call it the flower of Lilith, because these flowers were said to have been created when Lilith first appeared in the abyssal plains.
I stared at Diana, not understanding why she was giving me such a gift. She chuckled at my confusion and leaned against the railing, continuing her explanation.
It is also a flower we succubi use when we marry.
Use? What do you mean? Diana chuckled again before she gently took the flower from my hand and tucked it behind my ear. As it settled against my ear, I felt mist circle my head and form into a flower crown of lavender lilies. The way Diana looked at me made me feel like I was in my bridal wear already.
A human you may be, but Lilith would have been proud to see you marrying one of her own. These flowers represent her blessing, and may only crown the worthy.
I felt a blush run across my cheeks. This was a blessing? I slowly reached up and ran my fingers along the flower crown, adoring my head, feeling the soft petals against my fingertips. They were almost pulsing with energy. I felt both flattered and honored that a simple flower felt that I was worthy enough to crown my head. Diana let out a sigh and looked back to the sky, making me do the same. One would have expected the sky to be full of smoke or smell of a war aftermath, but the sky was clear and fresh air drifted through my nose as I inhaled. It was indeed another world, and tonight was my last night in it.
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out. Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise. I mean, not only did James defeat his father, the dreaded demon lord, but both of you took out a band of angels! Seriously! That's wild! But I guess it was for the best, or else they would have kept trying to hunt you down and make James the king of the demon world. Angels. So persistent. Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to... Huh? You want to know what happened after the war? Well, I mean, I guess I could tell you. After the war was finished, the entire rebellion celebrated. Word spread far and wide about the rebellion's success, and soon every kingdom in the abyssal plains had become united with the new authority. You would think demons would be more hostile towards each other, being demons and all, but the threat of the demon lord was what brought the entire world together. The entire world united under one banner, the Lilith Crest. Diana became the sovereign of the entire plane, accepted and loved by practically everyone because of her devotion to the world and her bravery in the war. And, thanks to you, she was finally able to find true love in the form of a tainted Nephilim named Sero. Oh, crap! I shouldn't have let that one slip. Oops. Anyway, when they bound their souls together in marriage, he became king of the demon world. However, It was just a title to him. The real power belonged to Diana. Diana became one of the most beloved rulers in all of Demon World history. Her natural heart of gold led her to lead the world to a prosperous future, one filled with peace and happiness. The other rebel leaders supported her, eventually changing the caste system of the world and slowly working their way towards a plane as equal and peaceful as it could be. Diana had her suspicions, of course, as any monarch would, but if they had any sort of bad thoughts about her before, they certainly didn't during the recreation of the world. And I believe that is everything that happened after, well, except for your story anyway. James and you returned home and prepared once again for your marriage. Everything was taken care of before he found you, so no one knew the wiser. Huh? How do I know? Well, I have my ways. Maybe you should check it out.
The wedding was perfect. The reception was even more so. Everything that happened to me before the wedding was completely washed away from my nerves that rushed through me and the joy I felt when I finally said I do. As the wedding bells chimed and the cheers rang through the air as James and I finally kissed, I could almost see my future laid out before me, and it was gorgeous. I could go on and on about the wedding and the honeymoon, but honestly, after the war, I was more concerned of living my life afterwards. Our lives escalated to new heights after we officially became husband and wife. James helped the Anderson Toy Company skyrocket through the business world. Now an official Anderson heir, I stood beside him, aiding him in every way possible. As for me, I began to go through my own success in life, dedicating myself to becoming exactly what I wanted to be. After all, my husband was a COO. Nothing was bared for me. If I put the same amount of work in as I did in the demon world, then I was going to be okay. However, there was never a day that went by that I didn't think about what was happening in the Abyssal Plains. It was a heavy chapter of my life, one that tested the love between me and James. The memory of the angels that chased after us would always run shivers down my spine, reminding me that at any moment an angel could lash out at us once more. Still, I was confident that we would get through it and stay together no matter what came our way. Demons, devils, angels, it didn't matter to us. We were unstoppable together. The faint memory of my own power slightly tingled through me every time I grew confident, eagerly reminding me that I had strength of my own. I would never let anyone come between me and James ever again. Alright, all you guys over there, squeal like crazy. I couldn't help myself from brushing my fingers over his gorgeous black locks, staring at his closed eyes. How did I ever deserve you? It seemed so unreal holding him close to me. How lucky was I to have a man who not only was strong, but also intelligent and charming, all in one package. The demon part of him almost became an extra dab of cream on the top. Whenever I looked at him, my heart would overflow in joy. This was indeed true love, and I was the luckiest person in the universe. I softly leaned in and kissed his forehead, needing to show my love even as he slept. He protected me with his arms around me, and I would show him my gratitude for as long as we were together. My kiss, however, slowly made James begin to stir in my arms. I gasped a bit before giggling, seeing his eyes slowly flutter open. The sight of his tired, whiskey-colored eyes made my heart go giddy. Flips, knowing that they would always look at me out of love. Good morning.
Good morning.
James nuzzles into the pillow beneath his head, taking a moment to wake up at last before smiling up at me. I smiled back, sliding my body closer to James and nuzzling his chest. How did you sleep?
I slept well. Waking up to your smile is so much better.
A red blush rushed across my face before I buried my face in James's shoulder, making him laugh and hug me against his chest. The content hum that rumbled in his chest made me smile despite the embarrassment on my cheeks. I was going to experience this every morning, waking in his arms and feeling complete within them. James gently kissed over my head before squeezing around my waist, making me look up at him and become lost in his loving gaze.
What about you?
I let a cheesy grin paint across my face before pecking his chin with my lips, lightly making him stare wide-eyed at me in surprise amusement. Sleep was good, but I'd rather be awake with you. James chuckled and kissed my forehead, hugging me tightly to him.
Well then, what shall we do today?
Sorry guys, I was looking. Oh my gosh. Huh? Don't you have work? James shook his head and caressed his cheeks lovingly, unconsciously nuzzled his palm, loving the warmth radiating from it as I stared at James patiently listening. I'll answer that at the end.
I managed to grab a couple days off.
How many days?
How does a whole week sound?
I grinned and squeezed him slightly in a hug of my own, making him laugh a bit and kiss my nose sweetly. You're all mine for a week.
For a whole week. No, I'm all yours regardless of that.
To hear him claim that made my heart skip a beat. No one else to lay claim to him but me, and I was thrilled at that. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, as he cradled my head to him and rested his cheeks against my hair.
So, any ideas? We could go into Chicago and watch a couple of shows, or we could even fly out somewhere if you want.
We can do anything?
Anything you want.
I thought for a moment, trying to decide what to do. There were so many things available to us, but as I felt myself melt into James's embrace, I closed my eyes and rubbed my head against his chest. How about we lay here for a bit and decide later? With a nod and a laugh, James gave me a loving squeeze and shifted to make himself comfy, allowing me to use his chest as my pillow. While the idea of adventure was enticing, we could save it for when we were ready to really get out of bed.
As my beautiful wife wishes.
I love you, James. James lifted my chin slightly and stared deep into my eyes, with an adoring gaze and smile making every part of me practically swoon at the sight.
I love you too. More than anyone in the world. I will always be here beside you every morning and every night for as long as we live.
I believed every word. I let his words embedded themselves into my heart, and I would remember them forever. As James finally kissed me, locking lips with mine, he sealed his words. His destiny was to be with me, and I to be with him. No angel could change that, no demon could break that. And that was my perfectly, happily ever after. And my destiny is with you, D. Da da da. Anyway, guys, we're going to go to the blippers, but first, you would like to show you guys the lovely pictures that we did unlock. And this is the very first one. Meet Monsieur James in his sexy glasses. When he was chained, our worst nightmare of him. When we said, yes, James, take me now. Him, in his strong attire, ready to defend us. when we failed. And he pushed us away to save us. And when we succeeded, in his living face, you know, for believe it or not, I love that pic of him the most. And we go to the bloopers.
Hey, welcome to the bloopers. If you got these, congrats. You played through all of the routes and are awesome. Anyways, I want to have fun.
And we go to James's route. You guys ready?
Yo, I'm Sam, and this is a piece of ham. I don't fucking know. We're recording James' fucking route. Let's do this. I apparently have 35 lines, but not really, because the thing I love about searching Sam with Control F is that I also find the word same. You know that feeling? Same. But it's okay. I found the line.
Okay, James route. Hopefully this is much easier and less taxing on my throat and my soul.
Oh! Oh god, Jesus, are you okay? I'm not sure if I'm okay.
Oi! Quit fucking in there! Whoa, what? Whoa, 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 whoa.
We'll kill him. We'll kill him. We'll kill him.
Cut, print. That's a trailer right there.
Thank you. We truly appreciate it. Fuck you. We don't appreciate it at all.
None of you know what has happened these past 10 years. None of you know of the Demon Lord's true strength. No. No, I'm going to take my truck and play with it by myself. Goodbye.
You had to live with that sack of shit for almost 100 years as sons. No more than that.
We know more than you know. That's why I can't say the line.
I don't know what the fuck that was.
The Demon Lord is a
You
madman.
don't need to tell us that.
Shut up, Matthew! I wasn't talking to your ass.
Down in the closet.
He's in the closet. That was it? That was it? Now I'm in the closet. Ends. Okay then. That was short and sweet. Wow, they didn't miss that much in James's story. And I won't be in the closet. Well guys, thank you so much for coming to my live stream for Seduce Me to James's Roots. I hope you guys really enjoyed the game. Next one I'll be doing is Diana's, which is right here. Because I already saw the voting cast of it, how much people wanted Diana. So that will be the next one. And the last one will be Damien's. So, next time around, maybe sometime tonight, maybe tomorrow. I have to look at my schedule because I know we work, but we'll see. We'll see. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. And if you guys do like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. You can always subscribe to my channel if you are new. And don't forget to check out my other videos if you haven't already. And I will talk to you guys in the next video or next live stream. Talk to you guys later.